I see Tom. How are you doing? Not the smartest guys in the room. NTSG. Not the smartest guys in the room. I see Tom. How are you doing today, Tom? Tom, man, he looks good. He's back to his original hat today, not the one he switched to last time. So what's up, Tom?
Well, I went back and forth last time, right? So I had my Talex hat on, and then I put on my Media Gym hat, and then I put my Talex hat back on. I was code switching back and forth between Talex Media Tom and Media Gym Tom.
Did you
But
see there was a nice video of you to Careless Whisper with the hat coming off?
yeah, I saw that. I saw that.
Okay. That's good. We'll have to make sure. We'll have to make sure some of our visitors, Dr. Tachi, if we see her today, uh, saw the Tom taking his hat off. And yeah, I decided for show and tell today, later on, that I want to run this like a soap opera. So uh, later on, my show and tell is going to be a continuation of something we talked about another day.
Okay. I was
So like, go on.
I was gonna say when you said you want to run it like a soap opera, I wasn't sure if you meant like you were gonna bring something back to life or like find a long lost twin of something you've done before or some obscure medically impossible plot line to bring things back to life or something.
That is a good idea. But later on, I'm going to carry out a show and tell based on another show and tell, just like that day when you brought out the circus peanuts, when you tried circus peanuts for the first time, and you thought a circus peanut was going to taste like a real peanut.
Well, I did before you did the show and tell, and we talked about it. Then I knew that it wasn't going to taste like peanuts. That it was for some bizarre reason flavored like banana. It's like the weirdest. It is the weirdest candy. Like, I mean, let's be real. It is weird. It texturally it is weird. Flavor wise, it makes no sense that it's a peanut shape but banana flavored. Like none of it makes any sense. It's completely incongruous and ridiculous. It's I think I get your dad probably loves them for like the nostalgia factor. But they're not good. It's not a good candy.
I wonder someday we need to have a running total of like weirdest candy. Why would this candy even be like, what would make you even think of like a nerd? Why are the nerds those little pieces like that? Why does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, I have no idea. What about like Necco wafers, right? They're just like sweet chalk.
Yeah,
Like
really.
what's the story with those?
We need it. We should do a whole nother episode on that. All right, not the smartest guys in the room. We're talking rebrand, not rebrand. That is the question. To rebrand or not to rebrand. That is the question. So I told Tom I need entertained, and I was thinking about all these bad rebrands and good rebrands and brands you're mad at and why people do it when they don't do it. Like, so I'll just throw one out that I was mad about when it happened, and for years I drove by this sign. I'm a Dunkin' Donut fan, Dunkin' Donuts, and they rebranded to Dunkin'. And so for years I drive by this sign. I'm like, this is Dunkin' Donuts. I'm angry, but now I don't care. I'm comfortable with it being Dunkin', and I for this exercise, my thought process goes to why rebrand when the brand no longer serves you? And so I'm thinking to myself, Dunkin' makes, you know, 40% of their revenue, maybe more on coffee now. So being named Dunkin' Donuts and branding themselves as Dunkin' Donuts seems like it could be a miss, even though people like me got mad at it at first. But long term, probably moving away from Dunkin' when they're selling avocado toast to my daughter and fruity drinks with pumps of weird stuff in them, I think probably they could move on. So, Tom, that's where I'll start on to rebrand or not to rebrand. That is the question.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting one. I think in some ways the rebrand makes sense, right? Because I think Dunkin' Donuts originally was a donut shop that happened to all sold coffee, right? Like they were not a coffee shop that also sold donuts. Their whole thing, I mean, I remember, back in the 80s, remember all those commercials like it's time to make the donuts? They used to make the donuts in every shop, right? Sort of like Krispy Kreme does to this day, and Krispy Kreme again remains a donut shop primarily, right? And I think Dunkin' Donuts is of the same, sort of lineage from a business perspective or sort of a market perspective. They're of the same lineage as Krispy Kreme, right? They were a donut shop. They also sold coffee. They then became like the morning stop for a lot of people, like get your coffee and a donut on your way to work, right? I think I might be wrong about this, but I think the whole like police donuts coffee thing is tied back to Dunkin' Donuts back in the day. Like that whole kind of like cultural mythos that like police love donuts thing, I think is tied to Dunkin' Donuts and a marketing strategy of theirs. So yeah, like, I think at a certain point that brand didn't really serve them anymore because they weren't a donut shop, right? They stopped being a donut shop and they became a coffee shop, right? And they sort of they very much followed in and learned from the success of a business like Starbucks and said, hey, actually, let's put coffee and coffee drinks front and center. The margins, I would be willing to bet the margins on coffee are way better than they are on hand making donuts every morning in shop, right? So the margins on coffee are better. The margins on prepared foods that they now sell in their shop that they just throw in that little convection oven, right, to heat up. I mean, I got to say, actually, the hash browns are freaking good at Dunkin'. But the food that they sell, the margins are good on because it's mass produced in a factory somewhere. It comes to them chilled or frozen. They defrost it, they heat it up, they serve it to you. So the margins are better probably all around for them because they're not making everything fresh in store for you. And so yeah, so I think from that perspective, agree with that or not, right? Whether or not you think that was a good strategy for them or you want them to be that kind of business. At the end of the day, I don't think they were Dunkin' Donuts anymore. So the rebrand kind of makes sense, right? I think
I can. Oh,
one of
sorry.
the things. No, go. Yeah. Sorry. Just give me a second, Carrie. One of the things that I think, we were kind of hitting on, and there is sort of this trend or this thing that we see take place fairly often, and has become sort of part of the cultural conversation, especially recently with the whole sort of rebrand and then rewind of the rebrand with Cracker Barrel. That sometimes a rebrand isn't necessary. It doesn't really serve any purpose. And actually it alienates a customer base and you probably shouldn't do it. Right. So I think Dunkin' was fine. I believe, I don't know their numbers off the top of my head, but I think they're kind of doing okay. They're doing better than they have in the past. So it was probably a good decision on their part. Obviously, we saw the blowback on Cracker Barrel. That rebrand didn't seem to have any sort of motivation in a shift of what their business model was and what their primary strategy was and who they were trying to reach out to. It was just sort of doing it for the sake of doing it. Like, hey, we haven't painted the living room in a while. Let's paint the living room that like chartreuse green. Well, like that's probably not a good idea. Don't paint it. If you want to repaint it, fine. You want to give it a little facelift, fine. But like, don't paint it chartreuse green and have everybody coming into your living room, asking for a pair of sunglasses because it's so bright in there, right? Like, and not wanting to spend any time in there. So yeah. So I mean, I think there's kind of two sides. It makes sense to rebrand, when it's motivated by a shift in business strategy, a shift in market. That makes sense, but don't do it just to do it. It's kind of it's a bad reason, and we can see in recent history exactly what happens with your audience and with your consumer base when you execute that kind of rebrand like Cracker Barrel just did. So That's those are my initial thoughts anyway, Dom. So I think Carrie wanted to chime in. You mind if we just go to Carrie? Go for it, Carrie. What did you want to add?
So I live about, I don't know, 8 to 10 miles away from the original first Dunkin' Donuts, and Boston runs on Dunkin's. That's our whole thing, and we're always angry and pissed off, anyways, with our iced coffee. But when they did that rebrand, it had really nothing to do with what they're freaking cooking there. It was just like, let's take away the um, O and the U and the H, whatever, when they shortened it, and it was like a sexy spin on something that honestly I think it was a good thing, and I was a little. I mean, no one likes some change, right? So I can't remember the year, but originally the Improper Bostonian was a long form magazine. So it was like W magazine, and it was not an 8 by 10 format. It was like an 8 by 11.5. And we were kind of hurting as far as production. And so why were we a commuter publication printing all this excess material, which was costly? And I was like losing my mind when we went to a shorter form, and I fought for the art, right? And everyone was like, we're not gonna survive, Carrie, if we keep it up. We have to trim and reinvent. And it was the smarter move, although very, very painful for me at the time, because the crops changed and how I produced imagery changed. But now we're gone. So if we don't, like, we have to, I just put new rugs in my house and I'm changing colors. A rebrand and a refresh sometimes is the move. And I hear what Dom's saying about Dunkin' Donuts, but like, we're still standing, and we still have Ben Affleck and, Matt Damon. We'll be all right.
Thank you, Carrie. Yes, absolutely. Sometimes a rebrand is a necessity for survival. So I think in your case of the Bostonian, as if print costs were going up and subscriptions were going down, and you have to change to a different format to survive, I guess that's what you got to do. That is what you got to do. So let's keep rolling this around. We are talking to rebrand, not to rebrand, the good, the bad, the ugly of it, I guess. So J Dub, I'm coming to you. So you got a good rebrand story, bad rebrand story, or you got some thoughts on what we're currently talking about? Go on.
I got an accidental rebrand story actually. Started my business 5 years ago under the premise that I was just a weird artist, and my flagship image was I painted platypus pictures. It just tied into the weird person I was. I got to teach people information about platypus because I thought that was something interesting to me. Did absolutely nothing for my business though. And then I accidentally created a robot character that ended up being my entire rebrand. Became my logo, became my voice, became everything that everybody knows about me looks for. So rebrand isn't exactly a bad thing. And in my case, when it accidentally happens, like I didn't realize that a doodle that I had was going to affect my life that big. But I've been drawing the same damn thing now for almost 2 years, and it hasn't treated me wrong. So I mean, I think that if you're rebranding, if you do it the right way, if your culture is leaning you that way, it's a good thing. But if you just decide to do a crack barrel thing and change everything about the face of your company as well as everything about the inside of your company and don't warn your audience before you do, it could be detrimental to business. That's my take.
So a strategic rebrand, obviously, rather than just it's time to change all the colors. Tom, what say you? And then we'll get us over to Dr. Tachi.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I think this even applies not just to like whole brand or like whole rebrands, but even like brand refreshes or product refreshes or product rebrands. And like the classic example of that is when is actually the mistake that led to the branding of Coca-Cola Classic, right? Like, which was the rebrand that they tried to do a brand refresh and they launched New Coke, and it tripped and fell flat on its face, right? I mean, it was a massive and colossal failure because there was nothing wrong with the brand. There was no reason to rebrand. They did it just to do it because they felt like it would be a good thing to be new and exciting. And it was sort of like, hey, you've got this massive, incredibly loyal customer base. They're not fans of this new formula. It doesn't taste the same, and now you're facing this huge backlash and declining sales because you've decided to rebrand and refresh sort of your cornerstone product, which meant that they then had to renege on that, go rewind and go back to their original formula, which they then had to make sure that people knew was the original formula. So they had to call it Coke Classic, right? So like there was, the whole sort of Coke Classic existed only to reinforce to people that they had sort of undone the product refresh of New Coke that had failed so miserably. So yeah, I mean, I think there are tons of examples like that. Then the brand refresh, or the rebranding with around Cracker Barrel, where it doesn't make sense because it isn't motivated. And I think that's the key differentiating factor, is that if you're gonna rebrand, it really, I think if you've built a brand reputation, if there's brand value, the rebrand, the shifting of that brand value has to be motivated. And in the case of Dunkin', I looked it up because I wanted to make sure that I was sort of operating from the right playbook. And sure enough, from a press release from 2018 from the Dunkin' website, they said the new branding conveys the company's focus on serving great coffee fast, right? Like, so it was a shift away from being a donut shop to being a coffee shop, right? And so it was a motivated rebrand. It made sense in the context of what their business model was doing and how it was shifting. New Coke didn't make any sense. The business model didn't change. The market didn't shift. Nobody was begging for anything new or different. They just decided to do it because somebody in a boardroom somewhere thought it'd be a great idea. And, we all know how that went. So I think it should be, it should be a motivated move, right? If you're going to rebrand or do a product refresh or something like that, it should be motivated by market forces and not just by some random desire of some VP somewhere in the organization to leave their mark on something or put the amp on something. That's what some of these feel like, right?
I just think that is the biggest bunch of bullshit in 2018 that they said, "Oh, we're going to give it to you fast. That's the rebrand." No. That is just language, and I've seen Dunkin' Donuts research, like how they've changed the way the structure looks and everything, but nothing has changed with Dunkin's. Like, it's the same menu, it's the same coffee. So someone's giving it to you a little faster. Like, that's so dumb that that's what they put out as a press release. They just tried to put a sexier spin on what they were doing, and they got a lot of attention for doing it. But like, someone's moving a little faster. Come on, that's so dumb that people like I like that you looked it up, but I don't think anything changed with Dunkin's. I'll tell you that much.
Right on. Good stuff. Okay. To rebrand, not to rebrand. Okay. We're heading on to Dr. Tachi here. I'm gonna throw this out to you too, Dr. Tachi. What about Ronald McDonald and Grimace? I love Ronald McDonald and Grimace. And now Ronald McDonald and Grimace are coming back. Like, they got rid of Ronald McDonald, ditched the playgrounds, and built these little small boxes. I'm not digging that. So was that the right rebrand, Dr. Tachi? To rebrand, not rebrand. Ronald McDonald, what do you got for us?
Okay, I'll answer it all. Good morning. So not that I keep up with McDonald's, so I didn't know that Ronald McDonald and Grimace were coming back. But if that's the case, this is clearly a case of we have appealed to children in the past. Not that adults don't eat it, but if you remember in the past, who was the one that was begging people for McDonald's? Kids. That was their bread and butter. So now that we've gone through several iterations of McDonald's menus, trying to get healthier because people are more health conscious, supposedly, those types of things, that they've really come farther away from that food that kids adore and love. So to me, that feels like an attempt to kind of pull people, the kids, back in so that they can beg you, Mommy, can I have McDonald's? So that you can be told we have McDonald's at home. So that to me is what it seems like to me. I did also want to add in general, to brand or not to rebrand. I think number one, you we are also brands, right? When if you have a business and you're the business, there is a business, and then you're the identity of the business. You also are a brand if you are a writer, etc. You're a brand. And so in that, I think you have to remember who your audience is and whether or not this refresh would be for their benefit and for your benefit, of course, but for their benefit, if they're going to feel that the refresh or the rebrand is beneficial to them somehow. So I'm going to use human examples of you being the brand. So Kris Jenner recently had a whole bunch of, shall we call it, augmentation. And she looks like she's not her age, clearly. So she went, what some people would say, above and bloody damn beyond. But people are talking about her. Her MO has never been, I need to be famous in and of myself. It's like, I need to push my children out there so that we can make this empire. So people are talking about her, but for her, any amount of talking about is a good thing. That keeps the Kardashian Jenner name in your mouth. So that's good for her because it was never really about her alone as a brand. So that refresh is all as outlandish as it seems. For her, it's a good thing. But now I want to point to two people that it wasn't such a good thing because they really, really are the brand. So Jennifer Grey, if you remember, she was in Dirty Dancing, and then actress Meg Ryan. Both of them, now Jennifer Grey had an accident, which is why she had to have some surgery, but her surgery ended up so she always had a prominent nose, and that probably bothered her. So that was the opportunity to kind of augment that. But the nose ended up so unlike who she was that it completely messed up her brand because she was unrecognizable. Oh, what the heck? She was unrecognizable. Same thing with Meg Ryan. She started off with lip augmentation, but then she just, they say plastic surgery is addictive, and she just kept going. And she, as a result, ended up really unrecognizable. For both of them, that was a refresh that was not needed because now people didn't recognize the original brand. And are they going to get the same thing? Because part of acting, yes, it is talent, but another part of that is face card, and we can't ignore that. So I just wanted to give those examples, extreme examples of personal branding.
Dr. Tachi, much appreciated. And I want to let you know that our buddy Jim Ajay sent me a message the other day. Jim, I'm going to let Dr. Tachi. He said you were eloquent, and he loves when you come on. And he said he was listening last week and was like, he said Tom actually gave a thumbs up, and Dr. Tachi, she's brilliant when she speaks. So well done. We appreciate you having you here.
I think that's a great point, actually. Renee Zellweger, who had me at Hello, totally screwed herself with her eye, the eyelid, whatever she did, changed her face. And I have squinty eyes as well. And once she did that, I'm like, I'm never doing anything because that was part of her beauty and she took it away. And right now, Bradley Cooper is all over the press because he's like had this 50-year-old facelift and they're saying he looks like Barry Manilow. And I don't know. I mean, just because you have the money to do all these things, should you do it?
we'll have to go and check out Bradley Cooper's facelifts. So facelifts are so what we've found out here is facelifts are not the best rebrand. Okay, not the smartest guys in the room. It's that time of day. We're switching it up. We're going to Tom Stums. That's where we ask Tom something from pop culture, from the media, anything going on. So, Tom, what I want to ask you about today, what do you think about the tradition of a group of friends taking shots together, shots of alcohol?
Okay, so I think uh, I kind of have two. I'm of two minds about this. So and I'll explain what I mean by that, but then I will ultimately give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I'm not going to equivocate or try to like play the middle. I will take a stand one way or the other, but I want to give you a little bit of context as to my thinking on this. So years ago, there's this guy I was friends with in my 20s. One of the guys I used to hang out with a lot, part of this group of friends. We used to all go out together, go to bars together, that kind of thing that you do in your 20s, right? Go to sporting events together, basically do a lot of drinking together, right? And this guy in particular always was the guy who was like, shots, let's do shots, right? But the thing with him was shots were almost always Cuervo, right? Which is just awful, like terrible tequila. And I like good tequila, but like, I mean, Jose Cuervo is just like the worst of the worst, bottom barrel, awful tequila. In fact, I think sometimes it's not even called tequila because it can't carry the moniker. Anyway, it's gross, right? I'm sure most people here now are kind of getting a little shiver thinking about Jose Cuervo, right? So he used to always order shots of Jose Cuervo. And it's gross. I don't like it, but I'm also not one to back down from a challenge. And so I was always there, like going, with him every step of the way. Oh, you want to do a shot of Cuervo? Fine, I'll do a shot of Cuervo. Like you're not gonna scare me off. You're not gonna like, intimidate me or whatever. The whole time for years, like for several years, I thought that he actually enjoyed or liked Jose Cuervo, and that's why he always ordered it. I came to find out after years of this that he absolutely was disgusted by Cuervo, but his disgust in drinking Jose Cuervo was overcome by the pleasure he derived from watching other people be disgusted by it, right? And the pleasure he got from watching other people struggle to try to choke down a shot of it. And so he was such a bastard that he would order Cuervo shots just to watch other people struggle with it, even though he hated it himself. So in that context, I'm not a big fan of shots. When it's like when it's shots for like for lack of a better term, shots when it becomes like kind of a dick measuring contest, right? When it's like who's the biggest, toughest guy, who can drink who can drink the most, whatever. Not a big fan, right? But if you're gonna do shots with like a group of friends, as sort of a bonding thing or part of a tradition or part of a night out, and a part of the festivities and in celebration for something, then I'm all for it, right? So in the sort of the best sense of doing shots with a group of friends, doing it for celebratory reasons, whether it's celebrating being together as a group or celebrating having a night out or celebrating your Steelers winning a game, whatever the case may be, in that sense, in that context, I think doing shots with your friends gets a big thumbs up for me.
I approve, and I think I hung out with guys that were like your buddy that bought the jerky shot of tequila. I know him. We're from different states, but I feel like we have the same friend. And
Yeah, it always made it a little bit like it really changed the way I saw that whole experience after. And this was like one night after many shots and many drinks, he sort of like confided that I was like, I can't believe you like this stuff, it's awful. And he was like, that's the secret, that's the thing, is I don't like it, I hate it, can't stand it. But it's so funny to me to watch other people struggle with it that I'll deal with it just to get that laugh. And I was like, wow, this is a whole different thing. Like, it just completely changed the way I saw that whole experience. Yeah, it was weird. And I didn't feel bad about saying no to the shots after that either.
I get that. And coming, we talked last week about I was going to play in a 7-iron in where everything is sevens and things like that. Jimmy's mentioned it, the Mexican tequila in the comments. We have a thing called a penalty shot. So if you complain, we started it with complaining about the weather, but if you complain, because sometimes to play this tournament, you would have to play it when the golf course wasn't that busy. So sometimes it would be cold, it would be rainy, and to make it go over successfully, we had to get people to stop complaining. So how we started that was if you complained about the weather, you had to do a shot. And then it morphed into if you complained about anything, you had to do a shot. And if you there's certain rules as well, like if you don't hit it past the ladies' tee, or if you break some golf etiquette, you have to do a shot as well. And it is usually a tequila with a worm in it. And this past weekend, I saw somebody do a shot with a worm in it, and he said when that worm went down his throat that it tickled the back of his throat. So that I've witnessed what you were talking about. Okay, we're back, Tom. Let's get back to the root of the question: to rebrand or not to rebrand? That is the question. I had New Coke on my thing here. KFC is a weird one that has rebranded from Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's still Kentucky Fried Chicken. What everybody wants there is Kentucky Fried Chicken. You can call it KFC. Everybody still knows. But when they changed it to KFC, they said it was like kitchen fresh chicken. You know, they yeah, that's what they claim the KFC meant. But everybody just wants Kentucky Fried Chicken. I mean, so it was an odd rebrand. So I've got go
I
on.
don't
Go
think
on.
I'd ever heard that.
Yeah, kitchen fresh chicken. That was the well. What's this mean? It means kitchen fresh chicken. Why? So on that rebrand, of terrible rebrands. I can eat Kentucky Fried Chicken all day long. I'm a connoisseur. Why is every KFC so dirty? Did you ever notice that? Go on, Tom.
Well, I mean, I think like I don't know, like the KFC rebrand, like I didn't know that they were trying to change what the K and the F stood for. Um, but the KFC rebrand, I think people called it KFC before they rebranded to KFC, right? I think that was sort of like part of the sort of the pop culture, lexicon, that people called it KFC. So they were sort of just moving with the market and the sort of common nomenclature, and people were calling it KFC, and they were like, well, let's just embrace it. People call it KFC anyway. Let's just call it KFC ourselves. But yeah, and as to why they're all filthy, I have no idea. It may be because they still to this day, if I understand it correctly, they still to this day make most of the food there, right? So like they get the chicken, they bread the chicken and fry the chicken there. They make the biscuits there. I think they make the coleslaw from like a mix or whatever. Like, the dressing comes pre-made or whatever. They don't make it from scratch anymore. But like they do sort of make everything in-house. They make the gravy there. So that might be part of it, is that they're actually cooking in there. But yeah, in terms of like why they're all a little bit dirty, I don't know. Maybe maybe it's yeah, I don't know. I don't even want to speculate. I have no idea. Dr. Tachi, I'll push back though. I personally I like coleslaw. I do prefer like a more vinegar slaw with like not a lot of mayonnaise in it. But I do like coleslaw, and I eat a lot of cabbage. Cabbage is good for you. So, all right, that's in the comments anyway. But yeah, and then we've also got Dave Campbell in the comments is saying that Taco Bell started as healthy food to drunk stoner food like Doritos. Yeah, I mean, I think like Taco Bell, if I understand it correctly, basically Taco Bell started in Southern California, and it was the guy who started it was basically copied the way the tacos were made at his favorite tacos place, like favorite taco restaurant, which were sort of this like Americanized version of a taco. So it had like a crispy shell, and it's sort of like the American taco that we think of with like iceberg lettuce and fresh tomato and all of that kind of, and sour cream and cheese. Like that sort of style of taco was sort of born in Southern California as a sort of an Americanized version of the Mexican staple food, and Taco Bell was built kind of off of the back of that, and as a copy of that sort of Americanized taco. So that's where I don't think they started as like sort of quote unquote health food per se. I have no doubt that it was probably slightly better in the past, or when it was just a couple of restaurants, that the food was probably of a higher quality and therefore slightly better for you, and not the sort of like meat slop that they throw in their tacos now, which I've seen and heard about, but I've never eaten. I've never eaten at a Taco Bell. And at this point, it's kind of like a point of pride, right? It's sort of like I've made it so long without eating at a Taco Bell that I'm kind of like, it's kind of a point of pride, and I'm not sure I want to break it. So yeah, but I've never had Taco Bell. I don't know. There was never one near me.
They're in the middle of a rebrand too, Tom. They're all of a sudden moving to this fast. They're trying. You can see they're trying to move to this fast casual, trying to get to a Chipotle style of restaurant. So I'm sure they're not doing a good job at it, but that's my answer there.
I will say this. I will try Taco Bell if I ever decide to do the Taco Bell 50K, which is a 50-kilometer running race in Colorado. So it's a 50K ultra marathon. And they basically, you have to stop at, I forget how many Taco Bells it is, but there's like, they plan a route where you go from Taco Bell to Taco Bell, and you have to eat something on the menu at every stop. And they have a list of items that you have to have eaten by the time you get to the finish, and you have to keep receipts and wrappers to prove that you ate those things with you as you do the race. So yeah, so the Taco Bell 50K, I would eat Taco Bell to do that race. I would probably seriously regret that decision, or at least my GI tract would probably seriously regret that decision. But I would eat Taco Bell to do that, and then probably never eat it again.
That's a fair assertion. I want to just talk on this rebrand. So many restaurants out there are rebranding, like a Fridays rebrand. I used to work at Fridays. I was the world's best server, but they're rebranding to be like everybody else, and then they try to be like everybody else, and 2 years later they fail. They're like, hey, let's strip everything we've ever been and serve the same food as everybody else, the same drinks as everybody else. We have a chain around here that I wanted, a few of them. We have a chain called King's Family Restaurant. I worked at King's too. King's Family Restaurant used to serve meatloaf. They served similar foods that you would see at a Cracker Barrel. They did it well. They did it low cost. And then all of a sudden they tried to be Fridays and these other Max and Irma's and those restaurants like that. they weren't as good at it. They could never be the best at it, and they failed. And now they don't have near the restaurants they had, just like Fridays, trying to be somebody else. So rather than doing what they were good at and going all in on it, they tried to be somebody else and they fell. So I think that is a problem with rebrands when you try to be something you're not. Like Taco Bell. Taco Bell might be great at cheap American tacos. Great, stick with it. Instead, they're trying to be Chipotle. Well, Chipotle's already better at this fast, casual, fresh food. People don't think of Taco Bell like that. So is it a miss? Go on. What say you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be. Again, it doesn't feel motivated to me, right? And sort of like you're talking about that example of the King's restaurant, like didn't feel like it was a motivated brand refresh or rebranding or reimagining, right? Like it felt like it was somebody got the idea and was like, "Hey, wouldn't it be great?" And they got enough buy-in internally from the management that they decided to do it. And then there was no demand for it. Like it didn't meet the market, and the market said, "What are you doing? This is not what we want. We want meatloaf and mashed potatoes and gravy and green beans," right? Like, or whatever it was that they were serving. Like, that's what we want. We want like Friday fish fries, right? Like, we don't want your fancified food or your different brand or whatever. Like, that's not why we come to this restaurant. You're totally missing the boat. And it falls flat, right? I mean, similar thing, like Taco Bell, I think still has the reputation as like, late night drunk food, right? Like late night, you've been out, you've been partying, you've been having a good time, you've been drinking, whatever you're doing, and you want something to eat at like, 2:00 in the morning. I've literally heard people say nothing hits like Taco Bell, right? At like 2:00 in the morning, nothing hits like Taco Bell, right? I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it helps their bottom line. And if they've got that reputation, like, and it drives sales, like I say, lean into it, right? Like don't shy away from it. Don't say like, "Oh no, we don't want to be the food that you eat when you come late at night and you order an insane amount of food because you've had a couple of drinks and your decision making is impaired, right? And so you order like, 3 meals worth of food rather than one meal." Like, no, we don't want that. Like, no, lean into that. Like, you've got one person ordering like the equivalent of like 3 orders because they've had a couple of drinks, and that's what they do at every time they go to Taco Bell. Like, lean into that. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Like, nothing wrong with that at all. But yeah, I think the other thing too, what you were saying, Dom, the other thing that popped to mind was you talking about working at Fridays. I would love to see a picture of you and your flair game when you were working at Fridays. I bet you had quite the flair game going with all your buttons and pins and stuff when you were working there back in the day.
Hey, I almost want to start a new segment or memory lane here with Dom. And when I was young, all I wanted to do was be in the restaurant business. Like someday I'm going to own a restaurant. Someday I was going to own a restaurant. So I applied at all these restaurants 100 times. Nobody would hire me. I don't must have been goofy or had poor penmanship. This is back in the day. So I finally get a job at Fridays as a waiter server. I go through training. I failed training, Tom. I server training. I wasn't good enough. And like I cared and wanted to do it and wanted to. So when they told me I failed training, I went back behind the dumpster of and cried because I was so heartbroken. I failed training and had to go to extra training. But after that, they took me back. I learned the breakfast menu. We had a breakfast menu. Who knew? How would anybody know this whole page of breakfast menu? Man, come on. So that's my story.
Was it like something specific that you failed? Like, was it like a driving test? Like you hit the curb when you were trying to parallel park? Was it some kind of equivalency?
Yeah, I'm telling you, it was. I think I almost remembered like maybe there was like some kind of Friday's omelet or something, and you needed to know like onion. What I feel what was in a what were the 10 things in a Cobb salad or across the row of Cobb? I don't know, but I was heartbroken, man. And so my flair game was good. I wore a tassel cap. because you had to wear hats and things like that. But I always felt goony wearing all that flair that jingled around on you and stuff like that. So, maybe somewhere somebody has a picture. So I'm not sure. That's memory lane for today.
I'm gonna request that for show and tell one of these days. If somebody can dig up a picture of Dom in his flair from TGI Fridays, I want to see that for show and tell someday. Which leads me to ask a very pertinent question. What do you have for show and tell for us this week, Dom?
All right. So here's how I started off saying I was going to run this like a soap opera. So I am. I see Jim Aj says he can get a picture of me at Fridays. Okay. So I said I'm going to run my show and tell like a soap opera, a continuation of something we have talked about in the past, but this is something new. So last week I talked about going to this golf outing with 7-ounce, and I mentioned it again today. 7-ounce beers. You use a 7-iron. So, and Tom, when I brought up a 7-ounce beer, you had said you never heard of it before or didn't know. So today I wanted to share with you. This is a pony bottle. So here's a bottle of water. This is a Modelo, and usually they have like simple names. So this is a Modelo, but since it's smaller, it's called a Modelito. So I drove all around looking for 7-ounce beers last week because I wanted to take a case. So the Modelita there's Cornitas. I was thinking about getting I found Michelob Ultras, but they were 7.5 ounces, and I did not think that would pass. And that could be a penalty, and which would require a penalty shot. So the Modelita, can you tell that's a smaller beer, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Just because I've met you and I know you're not a giant, and so I know that you don't have incredibly large hands, right?
Okay.
Like I know you're not like 7 feet tall. So yeah. So you're a little bit taller than me, but you're not a gigantic human being. So yeah, it looks like it's either a small beer or you're way bigger than I remember. So it's one of those two. But yeah. I actually saw, it's funny. I saw a commercial after that conversation we had. I saw a commercial for the Modelito beers, and I almost sent it to you. Like I almost sent you like the I think it was like an Instagram reel or something or a TikTok, and I almost sent it to you because we had just talked about it. But yeah, it was. I saw that. I still like. I knew they existed. I just didn't know they were 7 ounces, right? Like I had seen like the small beers before. I just didn't know that 7 ounces was a thing. And I think you made the right call. I don't think, like personally, if I was playing in this tournament and somebody showed up with 7.5 ounce beers, I'd be like, no dice, buddy. That's half an ounce too much. It's not set. It's got to be 7 ounces. That's the whole thing. Everything has to be a 7, not 7.5, not 7 1/4, not 6 1/2, like 7, right? 7-ounce beers, 7 irons, 7 strokes a hole, like, whatever the case may be, it's got to be 7s, right? Do you only play 7 holes?
Good question. You only score the best 7 out of 9 holes.
There you go. Okay.
And you're allowed 2 X's, yes.
Yeah, I was wondering how you do that because, like, obviously golf courses don't come in multiples of 7 holes, so it's either 9 holes or 18 holes, right? But never multiples of 7. So I was like, do you only play 7 and then just like skip 2, but you only score the best 7? Okay, so that makes sense. How did you do?
Well, when I came home and showed I didn't show them the scorecard, but there's about 15 people playing, and I didn't come in last because some people quit. But of the people who finished, I tied for last. So how's that doing?
People quit?
Yeah, well, 1, they might have to go somewhere at the end. 2, if you're like Jim Aj down there, he wasn't there this year, but Jim might pick up his ball and just be done because he knows he's not very competitive at some point. So But this year I saw that I was tied for last. And I didn't play like, and my golf game isn't great, but it's actually not good. But I mean, last, and I was trying and didn't think I did that bad.
I mean, I guess the scorecard doesn't lie.
Yeah. No, yeah. So that's what I got. So the 7 ounce pony bottles is your show and tell today. The Modalita. I went the night before. I went to one place. They didn't have any 7 ounces. I had to go to another distributor. They had them. They had the 7.5er, and then they had the Modalita, which made my day. It went down smooth. Fun was had. Everybody had a wholesome, good time, and that's what it's all about, Tom.
Nice. Well, yeah, I mean, it sounds like fun. It sounds like a fun outing, and a fun day. I like it, like, I don't know, the whole conceit of like the sevens thing is kind of fun, right? Like just kind of putting that limitation or, on things just to mix it up a little bit, right? Like, so it's not just a standard 9-hole, golf thing. Right. So yeah, I like it. I think it's a good idea. And I like the show and tell. Thanks for sharing the image of the Modalito with us. I will, I would happily drink 2 of those and call it a beer.
Yeah, there you go. Right on. Or you could drink the 40 ounces. You could drink 6 of them to be 140. There you go. All right, not the smartest guys in the room. To rebrand or not to rebrand. I'm coming around the room for one more answer to a question. So, a final tip. Keep it simple. I'm going to get Dr. Tachi, Carrie, then me, and then we'll get to Tom. But on when is it time to rebrand? So, Dr. Tachi, can you give us a quick when is it time to rebrand? Listening.
Sorry, I was talking on mute.
That's all right. I appreciate you. What do you got? When is it time?
When it feels tired. It's one thing for it to be, old and classic and traditional, but if it just doesn't feel good anymore, hanging on to something because of tradition is not helpful. Sometimes you have to change, and I know people are afraid of change, but it doesn't have to be a big sweeping rebrand either. So when it feels tired.
Well said. Carrie, if you're around, you want to jump in? When is it time to rebrand?
Well, I have a good example. Look at Clubhouse, right? Like, let's take away all your friends. And I mean, that was the craziest thing that ever happened. And the fact that we're all still here and it seems to be doing really well, but that was very painful.
Yeah, right on, Carrie. Okay, so Tom, I'm gonna give you my. Let's see here. I'll give you my answer here. I think when it no longer serves you, it's that simple. Like, hey, this doesn't serve where I'm at right now, where the direction of my brand. So, Tom, you want to give an answer on that before we get to something very special? When is it time to rebrand?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of, I would say related to Dr. Tachi's answer, surprising no one who's been here for a long time. Dr. Tachi and I often agree on things. Yeah, I mean, in a similar vein to Dr. Tachi's answer, I think when it's motivated, right? And I think when it's motivated by sort of external forces, right? Exerting influence on the brand, right? So that could be changes in the market, right? That could be changes in culture and society, changing the relevance of your brand or your products, right? It could be changes in consumer sentiment, right? Or the way that consumers are spending money, the kinds of things that people engage with, right? Cultural shifts, all of those kinds of things can impact a brand. And if they're impacting a brand in a way that it makes sense for you to adjust your brand, to refresh your brand, to suit the changing climate and culture that the brand exists in, then it's motivated. And I think it's probably time for a rebrand. So I think that's my answer, Dom, is I think when it's motivated, right? But I think it has to be motivated. Don't just do it for giggles, because you're going to end up laughing. All those giggles are going to turn into tears when you have to undo a rebrand like Cracker Barrel just did, or like Coca-Cola did with New Coke, some 30 years ago. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, very, very astute, and that is a learning moment when you think about cultural shifts. A company that set themselves up 80 years ago, 100 years ago, they might have just things were different then, and what's okay then wasn't. So I probably, a lot of these that we see are companies following that kind of premise. So well said. All right, not the smartest guys in the room. To rebrand or not to rebrand? That is the question. But the question is right now: can Tom prepare a cogent wrap up for us? What do you got, Tom?
Yeah, I think I have a cogent wrap up, and the way I want to wrap things up today. Thanks for the setup, Dom. And I know you're very proud of yourself for using the word cogent, so well done, buddy. But yeah, I think the way I want to wrap things up today is just by framing the way that I think, or a constructive way I think people can approach thinking about a rebrand, right? And it's this: I have this long held belief that all businesses are service businesses. And the reason I believe that is because every business, whether you're a product business, right, whether you're consumer product business, or a B2B services company, or whatever the case may be, a SaaS company, right, whatever market you're in, you're a service business because your business was built around the premise of solving a problem for someone, right? Every product that's ever been designed, every service that's ever been crafted or positioned, every software product, hardware product, consumer product, whatever, were all designed and built with the express purpose of solving a problem for someone, right? For some group of people, for a market. And if your business or brand was built to do that, to solve a problem for someone or for a market, I would argue that is a service, that you are providing a service to that market by virtue of the product or the business service that you supply, right? And so every business is a service business. And what happens over time is culture changes, right? Culture changes, society changes, the world around us changes, technology changes, the way we interact with the world around us, right? Which we're kind of experiencing, and our generation in particular, Dom, we are sort of the last generation that remembers a time before the internet, right? We are of an age, like people, a few years younger than us, like we are right on the edge. People a few years younger than us do not remember a world without the internet, right? We are the last sort of generation that remembers a world without the internet, right? There has been a massive shift in culture and in the way we interact with the world during our lifetimes. And as a business, when shifts happen, I think it is incumbent upon you to adapt, to maintain your market share, to maintain the viability of your business. And in certain cases, that is going to necessitate a rebrand. And in other cases, that's actually going to necessitate that you do not rebrand, right? That you maintain consistency. Because in an uncertain world, sometimes people want stability, right? And so the stability of the product, knowing that you have, knowing that the Coca-Cola that they pick up off the shelf is the same Coca-Cola that they've been drinking since they were a kid. It tastes the same. They love it just as much. That has value to people in an ever-changing world. In the same way that, whether or not you make donuts in the back of the shop every morning before you open has less value to people. What they're more interested in is getting, a complicated coffee drink that has 7 pumps of vanilla and 2 sugars and a whipped cream and a drizzle of whatever, right? Like that becomes more important to people. And so you rebrand and you adapt to the changing market influences. But I think a good way to think about it, a good way to approach it from my perspective is to understand that you are a service business and you should always put the service that you provide to your customer bases, to your community, first and foremost in your decision making as to whether or not to rebrand. And so that's what I've got for this week. That's how I'll wrap things up for today. As always, we appreciate you guys being here with us at Not the Smartest Guys in the Room. You are the reason why we do this. You're the reason why Dom drinks Modelitos early in the morning on a Wednesday. But in all seriousness, we love you guys. We appreciate you. We thank you for being a part of this community. For Dom, I'm Tom. We are not the smartest guys in the room. We hope you have a great rest of the week and a great weekend. And until we see you next time, we love you. Bye-bye.